Welcome back to another episode of Heavy Wireless. My name is Keith Parsons, and today we're going to talk about eVA. No, not the cute little thing from Disney movie. This is eduroam. We'll let our guest describe what it is and how it works. Today we have Cheryl Connell. And Cheryl, how are you doing today?
Great.
And tell us about eVA.
Okay, so it stands for the eduroam Visitor Access. If you already have eduroam, it's a free add-on that creates temporary eduroam username and passwords for your guests. So you don't have to have a separate SSID or network settings. You just run it off your current eduroam SSID.
Well, how did you get started in eVA? Wouldn't just a regular guest network be fine?
So in our case, we never had a full guest SSID, like a separate network. What we had was an in-house created guest account system that made a temporary username and password for our institutional SSID. But it was created by somebody many, like 20, 25 years ago. It was no longer able to be supported or updated, and it had a decent amount of a failure rate when accounts were created. You could create 10 accounts and 3 could work, or 5 could work, or, all of them could work, but we never quite knew what was going to happen. So it was deemed as needing to be replaced.
Well, I can see how the help desk didn't like making them if they got another call every time.
No, and it was a very manual process for them too. They basically had to create everything individually. So it was started looking into alternatives for it. If we were going to set up a separate guest account, we were at the time looking at going to a full Cisco network. So we were looking to see if they had anything that would happen. And then it was brought to somebody's attention that eVA was a thing that we should look into. So we did.
Okay. Just a caveat. Having at WPC last year, we had eduroam that we stood up and worked with Luke Jenkins, and I love eduroam, but there is no eVA in the U.S. right now. So
no,
it is a thing. And in doing research before this call, there's a lot of countries that have this guest access, for visitor access is what they call it, for people who have eduroam. So if you're not in the U.S., keep listening. If you're on the U.S., maybe talk to whoever's hosting your eduroam and see if we can get some pressure to have this solution available for us. Okay, so go on. So what kind of things does it add to your eduroam network?
So you can do the regular individual access. It goes by the role of your staff and faculty, employees, however you have them set up. And you create a role-based account for them. So anybody that's a staff or faculty can go in and create, and you set the parameters. You can say you can create, 10 accounts for 2 weeks, 2 accounts for 2 weeks, however you want to limit it. And then there's ways to do an SMS event where if you're doing a huge conference, you can create a one-time SMS keyword that they text to there's a poster that's created. They text it to the number and they receive their individual credentials to log in. You don't want to do the big poster to stick up everywhere. It has like a PDF that already has it broken down into little cards that you can put in their swag bags or their conference badges. And so they have their own access to that. There's also a way that you can set it up. It creates a URL. So if you already have screens around campus that are displaying, events coming, weather, things like that, it'll broadcast that and it rotates every day and puts up a new code. So you can't reuse the old ones or anything.
So basically, any visitor on campus who sees that can get fast, frictionless internet, but also secure. And all they have to do is see that one thing. And you're not worried because it's just for one day.
Yeah, it's just for one day. It does. At least we have, a phone number associated to it or something like that. If we did have to. It has some sort of accounting, but and they usually put in their name if they were logging in. But and then for large conference events, if you have everybody's individual phone number or email, you can still do batch uploads. And when you hit batch upload, it gives you the sample CSV file that lays it all out. This is what I need to have to put it in. So it makes it really easy for new users to figure out. It's been just seamless and easy, and there's been 0 tickets about it. It's been great.
I like how you said it during the pre-call. You said it just works.
Yeah, it just worked.
I wish there was more things in IT that fit that category. Well, for people who are, and there might be some people listening right now who don't know how eduroam works. What would a normal eduroam account look like? How would you make one? And how does the process work if one of your students goes to another school and to get access there?
Okay, so it's based off your domain. So if you log in with 12345 at your university and your password, when you go somewhere else, you just have to put your domain on the end, and you can go between the different universities and research centers. The one thing they like to get you to do is download. There's something called the CAT tool, and it helps set up certificate-based login. So it's an extra, nice step to have. But yeah, as long as your domain is part of the eduroam system, you can bounce around pretty much worldwide, as far as I know.
So if you show up and you have a staff account at your university, you show up at a neighboring university, you join the same eduroam SSID.
Yep, same SSID.
And then your credentials are sent where?
They come back to your institution's Radius server, and you authenticate there, and it bounces back saying, yep, you are who you say you are, and you connect, and everything works as it would if you were at your home institution.
So I'm guessing, I don't know if this is the case, when you make a new visitor account, either with the SMS or the event, or you upload them, you're making a temporary addition to your own.
It comes up as like an at eduroam.dal.ca. I can't remember. It's at eduroam.ca. But it does come back to ours. It knows that our system created it. Because when you log in, so everybody goes to the same URL. For Canada, it's eVA.eduroam.ca. And you choose your institution at that point. So when it creates that username and password, it's linked to your institution through through the website.
So what's the eduroam clearinghouse for Canada called?
eVA.eduroam.ca.
So this temporary username and password is hosted there and not on your own authentication server? Because that also might be why the U.S. clearinghouse hasn't offered this yet, because if they have to host it, there's a lot more going on.
And there is a back-end group that hosts it in Canada. It's called Canary. There are all the different Atlantic provinces and regions have their own little kind of subset of Canary. Like in the Maritimes, it's called ACORN. It's like the Atlantic Research Network, something. Canary itself is a Canadian network for advancement and research, industry, and education. And they host all of eduroam for all of Canada. So yeah, they manage the back end of eduroam and then added eVA as a nice little add-on for us.
So you can. I'm guessing you have eVA administrators, and then you can also turn that over. Not to you had mentioned to faculty and staff also could have the ability to be their own admins for this.
Yeah, so the faculty and staff can have more of a limited reach, where they can, if they're sponsoring somebody, if they have guests that are coming in to see them that wouldn't have, that aren't part of another institution, say, they can create a couple. You can limit it to however many you want. You can set it to a couple hundred. You can limit it down to just a few. But with the larger groups for conference services, help desk, and service desk, we let them do hundreds at a time. There is an absolute cap on it, but we let them do a couple hundred at a time. I think 2,500 is the max, and we set them for they can do a max of about 30 days, because at that point we consider anybody that's on campus for more than 30 days to be need courtesy access at that point. They fall under more of a temporary employee than anything. So, but yeah, you can create groups that can do all of the things, just one of the things. Like they can create individual accounts, or they can create SMS groups, or they can batch load, or they can do all of those.
Or
and
like
then
you
set
said,
the limits.
You could have the daily one that's just available, and they could just point people to that URL.
Yeah, and and there's just the daily URL, and again, you can have it displayed around campus on the information screens that most places have, and it just rolls through and gives you that day's SMS code to send to the number, and you're all set.
Does that come with the QR code as well, so people can just point and go?
Yeah, they should. Screen one? That's a good question. We haven't turned on the screen, the URL and the screens yet. We've talked about it, but they weren't quite ready to roll out non-sponsored, where it's so new. We've never done it before. There was they wanted to check into things. We are also an internet service provider technically, because we provide the backbone internet for most of the other universities around the province and some other groups too. So there was some questions about, AAA, and could we go back and make sure we know who's doing everything. So I'm sure it will become a thing, but I did see in the Slack that John had posted a picture of it. I'm wondering if, I think I had kept that, but yeah, I don't see an issue with it being used, but yeah, in our case, it's more of the politics of why we haven't rolled it out yet. But.
Was there any other policies that you might have had to adapt or modify to your security policy or your use policies to turn eVA on?
With the way we set it up, no. We were actually where it pretty much matched how we were doing things before with the in-house system. It didn't cause really any ruffles at all. There was a lot of discussions on with individual groups how many they could do and for how long. Like that was talked about quite a bit, but no real security changes at all, which was nice.
So how long have you had this on?
We've had this on since February, and like I said, there's been no tickets.
That's like when you said no tickets, that's a big tickets. Zero.
Yeah. There's been 2 new people started on the service desk. So I did have a moment when I saw a ticket with eVA on it, and I was like, oh no. And it was just to add them into the group, and that was it.
Any pushback from faculty or staff that it's more difficult, or they have, were they in your previous system, did faculty and staff even have access to make new accounts?
They did. And I think they were so happy that, like I said, we had some reliability issues on the old system. So they were quite frustrated with it by the end. That most of the time they wouldn't even, so there was a portal you could go to, but most of the time people would just put in a ticket and say, can you create the accounts for me? Thinking that it would work better for
if
the service desk than it did. Yeah. But it had the same issues for everybody. So no, it's been amazing. We had Can Height. It's the Canadian Higher Ed IT. So all the universities from all across Canada get together and do a big conference, and it's all based on IT security, what the buzzwords at the time. And it's a 2-day conference where everybody presents. And that was our first big test of it.
Oh, and you had it on your site.
Yeah. Dalhousie was hosting it this year. I think Toronto had it last year, but so we got to test eVA, and it was amazing. We figured most people would have their own eduroam passwords, but there was enough vendors, and we had about 200 users that used the system as our first big test of, and it just worked. There was no complaints, no issues. Everybody logged on, got their or used the SMS event and got their passwords and logged on, and it was great.
Well, it's always good to hear things when they work and don't cause tickets, and there are other IT people who would have complained. I just have since I've got you on the line and you manage eduroam, Do you have any stats internally of like what percentage is a non-Dalhouse authentication on your eduroam? Is that a stat that comes up?
Ooh, let's take a look. We got it open. What do we got for statistics? So they currently, well, I can't go, but it only shows the last couple of months, and that is summertime.
It is summertime.
But yeah, where nobody's around. So, but it looks like the last couple of months there's only been maybe 100 users per month. When we were back in June, it looks like we were hitting about 600 a month. Yeah, it looks like May and June were about 600 a month. And we usually have on our wireless network during those months probably about 15,000 users. So it's a smaller percentage, but
even that's 600 non-employee student staff that you would have had to deal with.
Yes, exactly. That somebody would have had to make pretty much individual accounts for, instead of just clicking the button and hitting send and off it goes.
And just make it magic. We like when we have IT magic and it just works.
Yes.
Hopefully, maybe someday, all the EDUs and K-12s in the U.S. who have eduroam will have a eVA capability as well for their own visitor access. Cheryl, how would someone track you down if they wanted to talk to you more about this?
I'm on LinkedIn, that's for sure. I'm also on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it now, with _ Gingerfi. And I do have, I'm going to say I do have a blog. It's Gingerfi, GINGERFIIT.ca. The last time I posted was a couple weeks ago, but yeah, I do occasionally get time. We're in the middle of upgrading all the APs to 6 gigahertz finally, and central and all of that. So I haven't really had time the last couple weeks, but
well, when you're done, you definitely have a couple blog posts from your learning.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it didn't dawn on me that eVA would be. I thought we were kind of late to the game to eVA, where it had already kind of existed around. So I never even thought of it as something to bring up to people until that Slack conversation started.
Well, that's why we share things in the industry. Thank you very much for your time. You've been listening to another episode of Heavy Wireless, part of the Packet Pushers Podcast Network, and we look forward to talking with you in the future. Thank you.